All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Pod by the BAE. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joined alongside me, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. Fellows, it's another win for your South Florida Bulls as they defeat Southern Miss 49-24 on Saturday in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Um, kind of alarming to start the game and then kind of boring. The Bulls spotted Southern Miss 14 points midway through the first quarter and then cruised essentially to the finish line. They ended after the 7-minute mark of the first quarter. They cruised 49-10. So a really bad first half of this first quarter, last half of the fourth quarter. There's a really bad quarter for the Bulls. Time-wise between Alabama and Southern Miss, but they righted the ship as they head toward a massive showdown with number 8 Miami on Saturday, 7 p.m. on ESPN at Ray J. Initial thoughts from this Southern Miss game. I'm kind of shocked and surprised that Naquan Wright is getting as many snaps as he has, that Teron Keith and Kelly Joyner haven't really eaten into it much. There were still, and we'll get into it more on the Ponderosa, still a 12 snap difference between Naquan and the next guy. So that's very interesting. He did reward the Bulls with a 100-yard rushing game. Kelly Joyner also had 2 massive runs for the Bulls. Both went for touchdowns, 43 yards and 50 yards. Seth, what was your kind of overarching theme from this game against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss?
Well, it was about what we expected outside of the slow start. But I think a lot of us kind of expected. I don't remember if it was here or on the Ponderosa last week. We started looking at alternate lines because going and looking a little bit deeper into Southern Miss, they did not look to be a really good team. So you thought, all right, the line was 11.5, and we were talking about it. We thought a 20-point plus win was in the cards.
I'm annoyed that they didn't hit 30.
Yeah.
I was really confident in that, and they had their shot.
So yeah, I mean, I thought Southern Miss had a pretty decent plan at the beginning, just taking advantage of a little aggressiveness. But USF keeps coming in waves. The concerning thing to me going forward, and it's kind of odd to say when you end up, I don't know how many yards they end up rushing for. I was trying to look it up real fast, but
369 yards.
You rush for 369.
That girl fine.
You rush for 369, and I don't feel I feel worried about the offensive line. Like that's my big concern. I think they can get to some of this run game stuff just schematically and formationally and with their pace, and they pop them. But the offensive line worries me, and this week it'll be a big worry, I think. So looking forward, that's my kind of worry.
Yeah.
You were stuffed on 13% of your runs.
And we did discuss it kind of leading into the game. Like, all right, so it's Alabama. They were able to push around this offensive line, and then it was kind of alarming, especially early in the first half, that Southern Miss was still driving this offensive line backward on pass plays, rushing plays. Like you popped some good runs, like kind of basically up the middle. What's alarming, and we'll get more into it on the Ponderosa. I'm sorry, you guys need to subscribe to the Ponderosa because that's where the juicy stuff is. That's where we break down the numbers. But I will give you a teaser. There's one side of the offensive line that the rushing numbers were absolutely horrendous, and I'll let you ponder which one that was. It was concerning. I think offensive linemen went out and they tried some stuff. That's definitely the alarming part going forward against this Miami team is no freaking joke. Like we cracked the jokes this week. We've had some fun, but Miami's freaking good. Regardless of who they played, they've taken care of business and have put up massive amounts of points.
And the passing game, now you ended up with a couple of nice throws that ended up getting taken away by holds and stuff, where you had like a perfect throw for a post on a touchdown, or a touchdown on a post with like a perfect throw gets wiped out by a hold. But like you start looking at some of the passing stats from last week, and we like to talk EPA, like points added, and it was a negative every time they dropped back to pass. So every time they dropped back to pass, they were losing points. Just their rushing game was so good. They're adding almost a half point every time they ran the ball. So that is concerning. Through 3 games, the passing game has not been great yet. It's had moments, but and I thought this week Byram was better, and the receivers let him down a little bit. There's a couple of great catches, but
a couple brutal drops.
He threw some. Yeah, he had some great throws. He had some great throws that were dropped. And, he ends up being like a negative EPA player, gets sacked 4 times. Yeah, so it's – I think they're able to overwhelm a bad Southern Miss team. It's just this is a totally different test this week.
Part of that roller coaster we talked about.
Yeah. Surface level stuff, we want to, bring light to the positive, right? But like there's some stuff that's the underlying stuff, as you mentioned, the EPA stuff is not great. The passing numbers haven't been great. They haven't been able to hit on the downfield shots. I think they were 1 for 2 on throws 20 or more yards down the field that actually counted. Now, granted, I did love, despite the hold, being able to hit the downfield. I think it was like a 35-yard touchdown.
It was a great throw.
I believe it was Michael Brown-Stevens for that touchdown that got wiped out by a penalty. I did like to see that because we hadn't seen that from Byram so far this season. And I was listening to Alex Golesh talk to the media on Tuesday during his press conference. And I was, he kept mentioning a quarter of the season, there's still kind of a small sample size. And as I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, all right, so at what point does that small sample size, because we only get 12 of these things, when is it, okay, this is who you are? Is it 6 games, 9 games? Seth, when you're evaluating, you cover Florida, you cover USF. When you're evaluating a team, you probably already know what Florida is. We'll put that base level. Yeah. Traditionally, like when are you kind of putting, maybe not like rubber stamping, okay, this is who they are, but like more often than not, you probably have a pretty good idea of who a team is. Like at what point of the season are you like, all right, this is probably who this team is?
I think teams get better, and you do have to factor in like previous years. So like let's talk Florida for a second. They've been really bad in 2 or 3 games. And, if it was a new coach or if it was coming off a really good year, you may say, all right, well, they might get better. But this is coming off like bad back-to-back years. So I think some of the previous year stuff comes into it when you start evaluating early. So for USF, last year they started slow in the passing game as well. By the end of the year, it really got clicking. And, that stretch run, it was really, really good. So I think you can give a little benefit of the doubt and say, okay, well, we saw this something similar play out last year where it wasn't quite perfectly, well-oiled machine, but as the year went on, they got better. But I think you can see deficiencies early, and then good coaches will see them as well and cover them up. So you expect teams to get better, but I think you can have a decent idea once they play some real competition, which USF has already played. Playing Alabama on the road. After this week, I think you have a really good idea because you'll play 2 really good teams. And if certain trends keep up, like if the defense plays really well again against this Miami offense, you're like, okay, this defense is probably pretty legit. And then, if the offense can kind of play up, you'll say, okay, they were just a little rusty. They're in sync now. But I think, after 4 or 5 games, you have a pretty good idea of what somebody is. Now they can get better, but you should know a decent bit.
Steeg, as you look back through 3 games, taking into account Southern Miss being the most recent, what's been the thing that's kind of stood out to you offensively and or defensively from this USF team that you're there kind of pleasantly surprised by, or maybe a little disappointed that it hasn't kind of clicked yet.
Yeah, I'll err on the side of pleasant surprise because that's me. I think the lack of turnovers is the biggest thing to me because that shows me one of two things basically. Again, Sean Atkins phantom fumble that we never thought would ever happened.
Right.
We're going to disregard that. That didn't happen. USF hasn't turned over the ball in 3 games, which is incredible considering how active this offense can be. Now, on the flip side, you're not converting third and fourth downs as efficiently. So, you're still not producing in the way that this offense has been designed to do, but you're not giving away free points, which is a nice thing to have about this offense. The worry whenever like Josh Heupel and watching the Tennessee games, watching UCF in years past, there was a lot of predication on defensive coordinators playing this up-tempo go-go offense of force the quarterback into a mistake. It's they're going to go fast. You have to be able to bend and not break, a la Todd Orlando style defense, and force them into a mistake, a fumble, a mishandled snap. They go too fast and don't realize the safety's moved or something like that. So the fact that, again, we're talking about in the Alabama game, the deep pass is not working. Again, in Bethune-Cookman, the deep pass is not there, and Southern Miss still not quite there. Byram not throwing these into positions where they can be intercepted is also kind of a net positive at times. Again, you're not losing momentum out of these things. You're not, Byram's not losing the confidence. It's just kind of understanding his arm strength. So to me, that's been the pleasant thing on the offense. And then on the defense as well, forcing turnovers, getting the ball back into the offense's hands as quickly as possible. To me, that's where USF can be extremely dangerous this year, is if they continue to not turn over the ball and they continue to turn over the ball. That's how they'll cause problems for a team like Miami. Is, you get an additional takeaway or two, the offense hums for a little bit, anything can happen at that point.
Yeah. So I believe it's 8 forced turnovers for the Bulls so far this season. Only 1 turnover by the offense. So basically stolen 7 extra possessions from this team, and they've done a pretty good job at cashing in on those. Some have resulted in field goals. I think a couple of the Alabama turnovers ended up in field goals, if not no points at all. You want to be able to convert those. I think two of the turnovers against Southern Miss ended up in touchdowns. I would be remiss to not discuss the Jamie Petway of it all. That dude, that was a 14-point swing. Mentioned it on Saturday in the game. Like, that's an effort play to get, because that's how often players sometimes may give up when the guy just beat. You got flat out beat on a play. You maybe don't try as hard. You kind of slow up. All out, forces the guy out. I think 2 plays later, Doug Blue Ely, just a phenomenal big man athletic feat. Michael Jr. loved it. Like, it was phenomenal, the interception. And then you go right down the field, 93 yards and score, and basically you're icing the game. Like, that was it. Like, Southern Miss had no shot. After that, you kind of kept it comfortably far enough away. The thing that concerned me early on, it kind of bears out in the PFF numbers. Again, another tease we'll discuss in the Ponderosa. Tackling early on was a little suspect. Golish mentioned that during his press conference on Tuesday. Those first 2 possessions that Southern Miss goes down and scores, one was aided by roughing the passer would be. I don't know. I think the refs
they drove him a little bit, but
Well, you know what? Tate, you shouldn't have decommitted. That wouldn't have happened. But here's that's really what it boils down to. And then the second one, they had to kind of rely on trickeration, and they did a great job in the moment we kind of discussed, all right, they have basically tried to counteract USF's aggressiveness, and that's just a staple of Todd Orlando's defense. Be aggressive, super aggressive. Well, how do you counter aggressiveness? Screens, counters, things of that nature, double passes. They were able to really kind of take advantage of that early on. USF settles down, and they don't score again until they scored in the second quarter, and then they kick a field, maybe the saddest field goal ever in the fourth quarter. Like it was a wrap after that.
Right.
So it was a really good recovery. You mentioned that bend but don't break. A lot of empty calorie yards for Southern Miss to the tune of 487. That's what worries me. They had 3 different quarterbacks play. Tate Rodemaker, who left, was, I guess, hurt. The announcers, we don't know. It was probably too quiet, too docile for us to even understand what was happening. But Tate ended up 10 of 15, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ethan Crawford, who was mentioned in the Ponderosa episode as being a guy who's going to play, 6 of 13, 183 yards with just an unfortunate interception. Like he got hit. Doug makes an amazing play in the red zone. And then the next guy, because apparently Ethan Crawford got hurt too. He had an ankle injury. The next guy goes 3 of 5 for 94 yards. So the Bulls give up nearly 400 yards through the air. I know a lot of younger guys played toward the end. Matt Karras, I think, played 46 snaps. I think they had like 6. I think Southern Miss had like 61 plays overall. So 15 plays where you're kind of bringing in your backups, things of that happens when the game's already kind of in hand. The first 3 drives for Southern Miss were good up until the fumble of the third drive. USF takes over, and then I believe it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. USF takes over and kind of completes the game. But Seth, them being able to put up that many points or that many yards, against this defense that on the whole has been better and revamped is a little concerning when you're going to be going up against a guy in Cam Ward who is or Byron Brown is the best quarterback in the state, has taken a hit over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Cam Ward is
Big
phenomenal.
shots.
He is like the real deal. And there's a reason why he's moved up at every single level from Incarnate Word, Washington State, and now to Miami, where he's got this hurricane offense humming, brother.
Yeah, he has some flaws, but they're not. Nobody's gotten it. He has some issues under pressure, and he turns the ball over a ton. But like they're really good up front, so nobody's really gotten close to him. I'm not sure if he's been sacked yet this year.
I know he doesn't. I know he doesn't have any fumbles. I've learned that through Twitter. He has not fumbled yet. He has 47 career fumbles.
46 in his career, but yes,
but
I think he's been pretty clean with the ball. Yeah, man, I think this is probably the best team they've played. So Cam Ward's been sacked twice, so it can be done. So he's thrown an interception as well.
Yeah, 2 sacks and 1 interception, so 3 bad plays all season for Cam Ward.
He has a 57% success rate on dropbacks. That is very good. He is, I think this Miami team is the best team USF has played this year. Just based on, kind of doing some preseason stuff on them and preparing for them playing Florida and then watching them play Florida. Like they just decimated that team. Now that win gets worse and worse looking every week, but the way they probably could have scored 60 points if they wanted to in that game. It was effortless and he was really, really good. He'll throw you if you can pressure him. That'll be the big match. Can USF pressure him with all their different stuff they do? Florida does some different things where they bring pressure from different spots, but their front is pretty bad. Florida's is. I think USF's has a little bit more active front, and USF's a better team than Florida. I think Mario Cristobal even said that today, that this is the best team they've played all year. Yeah. So, and he was not wrong. So it'll be a fun matchup. I think you'll get to learn a lot about USF, but yeah, this is going to be I think a pretty good Miami team coming in here, probably their best team in maybe a decade. or more. It's Cam Ward is the best quarterback they've had in 20-ish years, maybe.
Ken Dorsey-ish?
Yeah. So that'd be about 25, almost 25 years.
Yeah.
So, but he does have some flaws. If they can pressure him, then he's shown the propensity to turn the ball over. And even that Florida game, rolled out, threw across his body. He does stuff like that where he'll take some risks. And if you can get guys in, right place, you got chances to make some plays on it. But he also can just tear you apart if you don't get pressure on him. So he's a tough matchup.
And what was the one flaw of this Miami team over the last 2 years, right? Like it was not the talent. The talent was there. Maybe Tyler Van Dyke kind of sucked. He was kind of turbo, but however, the talent around Tyler was good. They've gotten a lot better. The running back's phenomenal. Damian Martinez is phenomenal. Cam is great.
They put a ton of money the last 3 years into both lines of scrimmage, like super smartly. And they're really good at offensive line and defensive line.
Right. So the fatal flaw of this Miami team, if you just look at the Georgia Tech game from last season, right, it was coaching. Well, you don't really have to coach tightly or make massive decisions when you're beating Ball State 62-0. You're beating FAMU 56-9. And then even though it was 41-17 at Florida, like that wasn't even that close. So like Mario Cristobal hasn't had a chance to Mario Cristobal a game yet. I don't think this is the game that it's going to happen, but for USF to have a chance, you've got to stay competitive enough during the course of the game to make it so that he may yak a decision. He just hasn't had the opportunity yet. So, Seth, my question to you, how does USF make it so Mario has to make a important decision late in the game?
All right, so I think the path to victory is not too dissimilar to the path to victory against Alabama. So you need to, and I think USF's pressure packages are probably going to be the toughest Miami's seen this year, the way they bring it, because they'll bring pressure. Like Florida brings pressure but plays like zone behind it a lot, and their front doesn't get home, so you're just getting a throw against zone a lot of times. USF will bring pressure and play man coverage, so and they'll bring a bunch of people. So if that can get home and you can get Cam Ward kind of out of rhythm, he's shown that everywhere he's been a guy that turns the ball over. But he hasn't really seen a ton of pressure this year. So you're hoping that happens. You can turn them over a little bit, steal some extra possessions. Then their real weakness last year was they were pretty bad on the back end. They're pretty bad in coverage, and they graduated a lot of their best players back there. And so they have some true freshmen and some new guys back there that aren't great. If you watch them play Florida, and we'll have some film on it in the Ponderosa here, Florida got guys open and didn't hit the shots because Miami plays really aggressive. They'll load up the box. They're going to make USF probably try to win with throwing. I think USF's offense, their style, will make an interesting matchup because Miami, likes to load up the box. Well, USF puts four guys really wide. Can you load up the box? I don't know if you can. And if you do, then if USF can win a couple one-on-ones like they did against Alabama and Byram hits them like he did against Southern Miss, now you got yourself a chance to make some big explosive plays. And so it's the same formula. Explosive plays on offense, get some turnovers defensively, and take advantage of your shots. Because I think you'll get some shots down the field if you can protect it. So, the big keys I think would be it's really going to be, can you protect your quarterback and can you get to theirs? If you can do that, then I think you have a chance to make it a close game. If you can't, then it could be a long night.
Steeg, a couple of former USF connections with this Miami staff. Is there someone you may want to talk about as maybe a running backs coach or?
Oh yeah, that guy.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's I was going to bring that part up. All the spotlight has been on Cam Ward, understandably. right? He's getting the Heisman hype and everything like that. They also brought in the number 1 running back in the transfer portal, and he hasn't really done much yet, which
when you only play like a quarter and a half, it's really
Right.
hard to get a lot of touches when you're just absolutely cruising.
Yeah, if there's a time where you want to, get your running back going, this might be a good time too. And speaking of running back, running back coach Matt Barrett.
Yes.
Matt Barrett. Yes, I confuse him and the defensive backs coach all the time. No,
He's at Tulsa.
Yeah, God bless. Yeah, so took a very understandable, upgrade to go from USF to Miami like that. So I was also, all right. Is it? That's how we're portraying it on Pod by the Bay. Tune in to Ponderosa to talk more about that.
Okay.
I thought there was someone. I thought there was like a punter or something like that I forgot about, because whenever you're like Steeg, former connection, and it's for you, I'm like, oh,
there's two more. There's 2 more on the Miami roster, and I'll get to them. But I wanted to hear your thoughts about Matt Barrett.
I like Matt Barrett. I do.
What about the connection on the USF coaching roster?
Kevin Patrick. I mean, goated. Also, DeMarcus Van Dyke.
Yeah, DVD.
So I saw a video. I think Travis Williams is the Arkansas defense coordinator. Did I get his name right? Yes.
Yes.
He was the guy that was at UCF for a couple of years.
Yeah.
He put out it was a video, it's an interview basically about how if you don't change, like if the team you're playing has a coach that was on your staff the year before and you don't change the signals, it's your fault. I think that's what happened last year versus FAU. I'm not totally positive, but it seems like FAU may have known the signals. Now, if USF does that again, we got bigger issues, but I don't imagine that will happen again where they use the same signals. Either because Matt Merritt's going to know the offensive stuff for USF. DeMarcus Van Dyke's going to know the defensive stuff for Miami. It's a whole kind of chess match. It's going to be interesting how they handle that. Lance Guidry, real quick. McNeese State 2013 is all I'll say. I believe he was the head coach for McNeese that game. Also, Sabbath Joseph, former USF linebacker, is an defensive analyst for the Miami Hurricanes. I always thought he was like one of the coolest linebackers during like the late 2000s, early 10s. So super cool to see him kind of coaching. So those were the 2 that I kind of wanted to also make sure that we addressed. But change your signals. That's really all I got. Make sure you use the helmet communication maybe a little bit more this week as we get deeper in to conference play, where you kind of know everything. Couple things about this Miami game. Miami 5-1 against USF all time. The one lone win was in Coral Gables in 2010 with Bobby Uveld at quarterback for the Bulls. The late Joel Miller, maybe with the most important catch of that season to get down to the 1 yard line. I believe Demetrius Murray plows it in for a 1 yard touchdown to help the Bulls win. USF has lost 17 straight games against ranked teams. Their last victory was in 2016. Can you guess the opponent? 3, 2, 1. Navy. 52-45 in a game that USF was leading by, I think, 30, and Raymond Woody tried his damnedest to blow it. The important stat for USF, we talked about it already, and we'll get more into in the Ponderosa turnovers. USF has 8. They've only coughed the ball up once. USF under head coach Alex Golish is 7-1 when the defense forces 2 or more turnovers over the last 15 games. 7-1, 2 or more turnovers. That's the number. That is the key stat for me this week. You force 2 or more turnovers, you got a decent shot. You steal a couple of possessions.
I have another key.
Do it.
Ooh.
This is Steeg's personal key of the game, as I've done in the past.
Always.
Early throws completed that are less than 15 yards. And I mentioned that very specifically because whenever I watched Tennessee, whenever I watched UCF in years past and everything, because a lot of the predicated like buzz around the team is those deep shots, right? We love the deep shots. We love an MBS, way down the line and everything. But to me, the bread and butter of this offense is those intermediate throws. And I mentioned it in the Ponderosa a few times that, and they called attention to it. The staff did after the Alabama game. They didn't do a good job getting Byron Brown in his rhythm early on those short intermediate throws, causing him to not get those long balls. It's something that USF has to get right this week if they want to be successful. Because again, we've talked about how Miami's defense is going to line up. If they're going to try to stack the box, those short intermediate throws, if you can get Byron Brown at like 8 for 8 with like, I'm just going to throw out a number like 79 yards passing. Like, you're not getting like the deep shots or anything like that. No deep crossers, but those curls, those slants, those out routes, etc. The additional yardages that you can pick up there to make it into third and manageables is the key for USF to sustain these drives. Because the problem against Southern Miss was, you had these big explosive plays, but Southern Miss's defense really wasn't on the field that much. They didn't have to sustain long drives of, a couple of like probably 7 or 8 plays. It was usually like 3 or 4 plays and then the big explosive run to score. And so that's where I think USF can be more successful here. And especially if, we don't have guys cramping on the defense, whether or not that was legit or not, but like the stoppages of play and everything, they just need to go those short and intermediate, get into third and manageable, convert the fourths, and then get back into the offense that it was there before. Cause a lot of stars shine on those deep shots. A lot of people like to go to the zoo and see like the big animals and the lions and everything like that. But who's the biggest star in the world right now? A little hippo named Mudang. He's the big star. You can get your bread and butter if you get the short ones going too.
God bless you, Steeg. I love it. Absolutely love it. Let's get into our picks. Just to recap, and then we'll get out of here on this. Seth, you had USF minus 11 last week. You have moved to 3-0 on the season. Nathan, you also had USF minus 12 last week. I won't knock me for the alt line of minus 30. Should have happened.
I think you could only get up to like minus 22 on the alt line.
Yeah, so like I nailed it.
Yeah.
Steeg, you had Southern Miss plus 12. You are now 0-3, the best 0-3 in the world. Some are saying the best 0-3 in the world. So, Steve, we're gonna let you lead us off here. I'll give you the line. I'll give you the over/under. All right. So Miami is currently, this is Hard Rock Sports Bet because other places don't exist anymore. Miami favored by 16.5. The over/under is 65.
Someone's got to do the math for me in the head for what that score line is. No. Do I continue the world's worst offer? Actually, the world's best offer, or do I try to be sensible? Have I ever been sensible?
Like 41-24 would be the right?
41-24. That makes sense. Yeah,
that's 17, right? Yeah,
it's about 17. Yeah. I need a algorithm for that. I think Miami's gonna just kick our shit in, man. Respectfully, of course, and with censorship warning. Vito, here's your chance. Miami's gonna kick our shit in. Like, absolutely. Like, this team looks like a fucking machine, man. Like, like, yeah, we could talk about Cam Ward having fumble issues and, getting him off his pace and everything like that. I'm sure Ball State did the exact same thing. And I am sure UF did the exact same thing. And I am sure that Bethune-Cookman tried to do the exact same thing. And you know what? No one's been able to get him off his game yet.
Well, Bethune hasn't played him. It was FAMU.
Oh, FAMU. Sorry. The other
How
HBC.
dare you?
I'm the worst. But yeah, I can't. I don't think that this USF team is that by any stretch of the imagination. I think that this USF team can do a lot of damage in conference play. I think this Miami team is like a top 5 team in the country, unlike Alabama. So they're going to kick our shit in. Yeah. 63 to 17.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. I'm really not confident. Man, Cam Ward looks really good, man.
I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, I think Miami easily covers 16.5. What worried me versus Southern Miss is what's worried me about this defense. Again, you're bad until you're not, until you've proven otherwise. The last 6 minutes of the Alabama game was concerning. The first portion of the first quarter against let's be frank here, that Southern Miss team sucked ass, and they put up nearly 500 yards of offense on you. That's concerning. Now you have a quarterback who's actually good, a running back that is one of the best in the country. Couple that with an offensive line that moves guys. It's concerning. I'm going Miami minus 16.5. Prove me wrong. Do the unthinkable. Break the 17-game losing streak against ranked opponents. Do it all. Shove it in my face. Break my winning streak. That's all I care about. But I don't see a path to victory for these South Florida Bulls against Miami. Seth, round us out. Is there a modicum of hope from you?
I'm going to go just to be a little different here, and this could hurt me. I think I kind of lean similar to you guys, but I'm going to go under 65. Let's go under 65. Yeah, I'm concerned about Miami's defensive front, giving USF a lot of problems. And if USF cannot hit the passes over the top, like they weren't able to against Alabama, I think they'll have a tougher time running the ball against Miami, just the way they play defense. And that's something we'll show you guys in the Ponderosa. And, I mean, I think USF's defense can give Miami a little bit of pause here and there to where they won't just totally roll up and down the field the whole game, but I think they'll get them in the end. But, the back door scares me a little bit because USF will keep playing, but give me under 65.
All right.
Hopefully we're all wrong and it's just a high-scoring, close game. That'd be pretty sweet.
That'd be super awesome. This Bulls team needs a signature victory. It's been a very long time. This is your opportunity. Second top 10 team in 3 weeks. You played one pretty close that didn't really have a good quarterback. Like Jalen's fine, but I think Cam Ward is significantly better than Jalen Milroe.
I think they're better around him too.
Yeah, Miami does not have the offensive line issues that Alabama has. I think that is first and foremost. So if you're expecting the same kind of performance from the defensive line as you saw versus Alabama, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. Todd Orlando will scheme up an open blitz once or twice probably against this team, but to be consistent, it's tough. It's an uphill climb. You go 2-2 out of this. You go to Tulane next week. Everything's still in front of you. Nothing has changed season outlook wise if USF loses this game. Like not a single thing, and that's what fans need to keep in mind. You lost the games you were expected to lose. At some point, you need to win one that you're not expected to win. This just isn't the week.
Yeah, this is I think it's a really good measuring stick for where you're at, just like Alabama was. Like if the defense plays well again, I think you can be at this point. You talked about, when are you kind of ready to say a team is what? I think if the defense plays pretty well again, you can be set that this defense is going to be pretty good, right? Because for the most part, they played pretty well this year. And last year, Alabama, they played well, but almost every game outside of that, they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
So far this year, it's been pretty good effort every week. So great measuring stick here. And this Miami team, I think they said if you took out all the preseason priors, Miami would be 6th in SP plus. So they've been kind of a runaway freight train so far this year.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Again, thanks for tuning in to Pod by the BAE. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, everything. Make sure you become a patron because right after this, we're going to be recording a Ponderosa episode with some film room stuff. You get more bang for your buck. $5 gets you into the Discord. $10 gets you extra content throughout the football season. Nobody does it better than the Bay Area Examiner, and I will put my stamp on that. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Be safe. Have fun. Hydrate. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.